Welcome back to Faster and Louder. Today I'm going to be making a video that I've been thinking about doing for a long time. The reason why I'm doing this is because, like you, probably like you, I am on like 15 different groups on Facebook for car stuff. I'm on forums on the internet, all kinds of stuff. I'm always asking for help or opinions about whatever I'm doing on my car. And this is no different. But I'm sure when you've been building a car, if you've built one already or you are building one, you have a problem with something and a response that you'll get is something like, oh, well, you should just not do that and just do whatever factory did instead and just be okay with it. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes factory stuff is the best. A lot of times it really is the best. It fits the best more often than anything. But it's not always the best when you're talking about making power. And that's kind of what this whole video is going to be about. It's going to be about all those little things that you can just forget about and just do factory, but they add up. They add up. These little things give you just a little bit extra power, a little more efficiency in your engine, and really adds up to be a pretty good power difference. So I'm going to just go over a few of those things right now so you can keep these in mind maybe when you're building your car. One of the biggest things that really got this going in my head was fans, like cooling fans, radiator fans. My car is a 73 AMC Javelin AMX, just for reference, just so you know that.
American Motors Javelin is making the 73 scene with a distinctive, debonair, devil-may-care look that's bound to stir up plenty of sales action with a sporty car buyer.
It's a 401 V8. It's been bored out a little bit. It's a pretty fresh engine. I'm going through everything on my car. If you want to see all the stuff that I've done on my car, I have it all on my YouTube. There's a ton of videos. I also did a Challenger, a 2010 Challenger back in like a few years ago, if you want to check that out too. But I digress. I was going through trying to decide what to do for cooling, and I settled on electric fans because they take so much less power to turn. I mean, you need an alternator powerful enough to power your electric fans, which technically takes horsepower to do, but when you're comparing like especially like a flex fan or something like that to electric fans, the difference is enormous. And even if you have a clutch style fan, you're talking about 20 horsepower freed up just going to electric fans. But I had people on the Facebook groups and stuff, and they're saying, you know, you want to be able to cool it right, use a clutch fan and all that. It's just so much easier. And in a way, they're right. But when you start like doing all these little things to just make things easier, you really end up sucking a lot of power from your engine. And if you don't have like a huge high horsepower build, these things make a big difference. And that's something else to kind of consider too, is like what size engine you have, how much horsepower you make, what the application is. Like, is it going to be a front wheel drive car? Is it a rear wheel drive car? Does it weigh 3,000 pounds? Does it weigh 4,500 pounds? There's a lot of considerations to make when you're talking about this kind of thing. It can vary pretty wildly, and this is just kind of this is me using very loose terms, like when it comes to horsepower gained or lost, that type of thing. And I'm really referencing a lot of the Engine Master stuff on Motor Trend, so if you're not familiar with that, then you should definitely check that out. That's where I learned a lot of this stuff. I just thought it'd be cool to put this all in one place. The next thing is headers. Now, headers, as I'm finding out right now on my Javelin, I guess not really finding out, every single pair of headers I've ever had has been a total pain in one way or another. And usually it's fitment. They're not designed like that from the factory for a couple of reasons. Factory will always have the smaller manifolds that tuck in there nice, and it doesn't touch anything, doesn't rub, so you don't have to worry about all that stuff. But headers, long tube headers, will give you a lot of exhaust scavenging. It'll help the air just escape, helps it get out of there. People will tell you not to do long tube headers.
Today I'm going to talk about why not to put exhaust headers on your car's engine.
It's just not worth it. Just do regular manifolds if there's some kind of free flow design, or if there's like shorty headers, then just use that instead. And you totally can, but again, you're going to be giving up some power. And in my application specifically, I have an AMC 401, and it's like 450 horsepower, something like that. If I went back to the factory manifolds, you're talking at least 25 horsepower right there. So just doing the clutch style or clutch type mechanical fan and going back to regular manifolds, that's almost 50 horsepower right there. Just two little things, 50 horsepower. And there's a few other things still on here. That's just the two big ones. Then you can look at air filter and the air filter assembly, or the air cleaner that it all goes in. Usually, or a lot of times on factory stuff, they have like a closed box, and it's like the snorkel that goes into the engine bay. So that is going to be very restrictive. You're literally bottlenecking it in that snorkel going into the engine bay, and then you're sucking in hot air. And you know, 90% of carbureted engines like mine are going to be sucking in hot air regardless, but the big difference is air restriction. Once you move to a different style, like the typical round flat air cleaner with like a 3 or 4 inch opening on the air element, you're actually letting in a decent amount more air. It's actually able to take in air that it needs to make more horsepower. And typically that's only like a 5 or 10 horsepower difference, but it's something, you know. But there's a lot of guys that'll say, well, you want to have a factory style, you know, factory, like they just want everything to be factory. They want it to be exactly how they remember it in 1975 when they bought this car for $200. Somewhat overlooked thing, I think, that makes a decent amount more power in some cases, is switching from a dual plane intake manifold to a single plane intake manifold. Even if you have an aluminum aftermarket 2 or 4 barrel dual plane intake and you just switch to a single plane, you can pick up a pretty good amount of power. The one that I have on my car right now, I've seen dynos that prove this. I have the Offenhauser dual port intake manifolds. It's single plane, but the plenum is like really short. It's almost like factory height, and it is basically like 20 or 25 horsepower below one of the most popular single plane intake manifolds, which is the Torker intake. So just switching like single plane to a different single plane, just higher plenum, I'm leaving like at least 20 horsepower on the table just doing that. Straight through mufflers compared to like those really popular turbo mufflers. Like a turbo muffler, it'll come into the body, like let's just pretend this is the top. It'll come in and it goes to like a chamber in the inside. It goes like basically 180 degrees or 360 degrees basically to come out on the bottom side of the muffler. And it's creating turbulence. The air can't just like easily flow through it or anything, so you're causing a restriction essentially in your muffler. And having a straight through, obviously you're just avoiding all that, so it's just going straight out, no obstructions, nothing. And I've seen, this is another thing on Engine Masters, where they put those turbo mufflers on there like that and they lose something like 40 horsepower compared to maybe 10 or 15 with a straight through design. Same can be said for having like an X pipe or an H pipe. It's not a big difference. You might be looking at like 5, maybe 10 horsepower on the top side, but the real difference is having an X pipe or an H pipe as opposed to nothing at all. It gives you a little bit of power, just helps scavenge the exhaust gases out and just speeds everything up, helping you make more power. A little thing that I didn't realize makes a pretty good amount of power for like how simple it is just a carb spacer, the little plastic piece that goes underneath your carburetor. It basically just helps direct the airflow down into the intake manifold. It just makes that air charge a little faster and a little more direct. and it can make a pretty good amount of power, like 5-10 horsepower depending on your application, which is definitely not bad considering they cost like 20 bucks. The last thing that I put on my little list here was actually a recommendation from my dad, and he was saying that basically your ignition timing and curving your distributor can make a huge difference. I mean, this I feel like would be something really easy to miss. You know, you just slap everything in there, you get your initial timing right, you check your full timing, and everything looks like pretty close or whatever, but the curve, if you don't change your springs in your distributor, all your timing might not come in until 5,000 RPM or later, which kind of sucks. You want to have your timing come in as soon as you possibly can without having any detonation or anything. So if you can get your timing in at 3,000 and not have any issues, then you're making all that power that much quicker, and in some cases you actually make a total amount of horsepower more than what you had before. So, and that one's, I mean, depending on what your distributor comes with, sometimes they come with the springs and the bushings and all that stuff, and that's basically just free horsepower right there. I just added up everything on my list and took the conservative numbers from everything, like maybe 5 horsepower for a carb spacer, maybe 5 horsepower for the X pipe, so on and so forth, and you're looking at least 90 horsepower. And these are all those things that are just pointless, or things that people are like, oh, it's not worth it, or it's too much trouble, or, you know, it's just a pain in the these are all those things, and you just combine it, all those pointless things, and you get 90 horsepower. So is it really pointless? That's my question for you. If you guys like this video, please let me know. Leave a comment. I would love to have a conversation about any of what I just said in this video. If you have other things that you'd like to mention, maybe something I forgot, I would love to know that too. I'll also remind you that I have some pretty cool merchandise on fasterandlouder.com. I'm trying to come up with some cool designs and just kind of slowly introduce them onto the website. Hopefully you like some of them, and maybe you'll buy one. I don't know, that'd be pretty cool. If you haven't checked out the Javelin videos that I've already done, I have like 30 or 40 at least, or the Challenger stuff that I did before. I did a cam swap and a bunch of other crap. But if you want to check out that stuff, sweet. Thanks guys. Until next time, later.